I would be, unless it is a stellar cast, I probably won't go see La Boheme again. But if I was given the opportunity to sing Rodolfo again, oh, absolutely. If I was given an opportunity just to sing the third act with a quartet, absolutely. I might not ever even listen to the whole thing again. It's boiled down to the third act for me.
Yeah, that's one of the most...
For Bohème. That's my guilty pleasure. The rest of it is now in the...
The third act of Bohème is such a concise, dramatic construction.
It is.
It's perfect.
It's so good.
The way the two characters enter the act apart and two of them together, and then through the act they change trajectories, and they each end up in the opposite condition, together and apart. It's just wonderful dramatics.
Another opera guilty pleasure. No, not a guilty pleasure. One I would choose not to listen to again is Ride of the Valkyries.
Yeah, I would love to hear it in the context of a performance.
Yes, the entire opera I will listen to.
I have no use for it as a concert piece.
But not as a concert piece. Yeah. Boy, we've got a wild cat at the door.
We do. I think maybe we should let him
bottle. So we have a new member of the rebellion.
That's right. Cattical Rebellion.
Yes. Let your voice be heard.
I'd always like to hear Falstaff.
That one is not as big.
But you have to have the right Falstaff. I mean, but I'd like to hear Falstaff in like a 1,000 seat theater with a baritone, the quality of what we had here. That guy was good.
Yeah.
And he barked that thing out to 3,000 seats convincingly, and that was tough.
Yeah.
But it would have been a much different, because it's effectively a chamber opera that Verdi was kind enough to put the chorus in to give people some work, but they're not necessary.
Do you know the story behind the string quartet?
Something about he was staying at a hotel.
Yeah, so the Aida in Naples was delayed because the soprano was ill. Teresa Stoltz.
Okay.
And so he just wrote the string quartet in the meantime in March, and was premiered in his hotel room for about 7 or 8 companions on April 1st, 1783.
I did hear that he said something to the effect of. Somebody said, it's a work of genius. He said, I don't know if it's a work of genius or not. I just know it's a quartet.
That's right. That's right.
It's a quartet.
It's a quartet.
But I do think it's a work of genius. I think it's a remarkably succinct and well-motivated piece of music. It just drives right through.
I enjoyed it. I listened to it after you recommended it.
It's fun. And but I would like to... I think you could orchestrate it as a chamber symphony, with woodwinds and some brass. And it would be... There's something in it for everybody.
Yeah.
It's a shame it's never been done.
So we've gotten off guilty pleasures, and now we're just tangentializing.
Yes, guilty pleasures. So, I think I covered 5.
Are we doing just 5? Okay.
We were sort of talking about guilty operas. There's a lot of guilt in opera. There should be. They're terrible people.
They are.
The opera characters are just terrible people.
Yeah.
Especially baritones. I mean,
Yeah.
They're always abducting a soprano someplace.
Yeah, so guilty. So Butterfly is a guilty pleasure. Tosca is all the Puccinis are guilty pleasures.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah,
they are. I'm not saying they're not without artistic merit, but for whatever reason, I always feel guilty.
I commented this week on somebody. Dallas Opera put up a thing talking about where is opera going? Are millennials going to kill opera too? And, I reposted to that.
They're not, because classical rebellion is rebelling against...
That's right. Classical rebellion is empowering millennials.
Yes.
To actually, hopefully, to stimulate and spur them to develop an appreciation for opera beyond what hidebound and economically intransigent opera companies are willing to give them. Is that succinct enough?
That was impressive.
Thank you. Well, it's the truth, because it's not millennials. And someone else, and I might have said it myself, but someone else said, it's not millennials that are killing opera. Opera companies are killing opera.
Yeah.
And that's the truth.
Yeah.
Because they're allowing themselves to be bound by economics in theaters that do not necessarily fit the profile of the company, and they're not getting. I mean, look, you can do Aida if you can do Aida in the La Fenice in Venice at 900 seats. You can do it in the Balboa. You can do it in
Balboa Theater,
in a number of
seats.
different places. It doesn't have to. Not every theater has to be
The Metropolitan
Met.
Opera.
You know, the multi-use American Civic Theater auditorium is not necessarily the model for mandatory operatic production. It just doesn't have to be. And that does not reflect on the capacity or value of an opera company's presentations. Audiences need to understand that. You don't have to be in a stadium to be at a concert, you know?
Right.
That was, you know, The Who in the 1980s. You know, it's not a concert that I'm going to go to, but nevertheless, you know, I was more like, you know, the English Beat at the Country Club up in LA, but nevertheless, it doesn't have to be 3,000 seats. So find another way to get to adjust your size so you can get a variety of different material on stage for audiences so they can hear it. They've got to hear it.
Yeah.
We've still never heard La Gioconda in this city. You know?
Yeah.
There's a crap ton. And the other thing, you know, but what I did say is that has anyone thought of writing a comedy, perhaps? You know, I mean, we all know that opera likes to be taken very seriously, and it likes to address the very serious issues. But audiences do like to laugh now and again, you know, and, you know, another Offenbach or maybe even an Arthur Sullivan would go a long way towards cheering things up around here.
Or another Mozart.
Or another Mozart. But
Magic Flute is funny. Don Giovanni is funny.
My point
Così
is,
fan tutte is it's all mistaken identity.
and somebody else,
but it's still funny.
but somebody else then said, Jake Heggie wrote Great Scott, and it was done here at Dallas Opera a few years ago.
That was pretty funny.
He said, maybe you missed it. And I said, I was in it in San Diego.
Take that, son!
No, but, and look, the audience liked it. They laughed at it.
I loved it.
I thought
my children laughed at it.
it only drew 2/3 of the house at the Civic Theater.
Well, that's San Diego.
But the audience did like it.
It was fantastic.
However,
I loved it.
However, is there a Largo al Factotum in that comedy? Is there an Una voce poco fa in that opera? No, there's not.
Yeah.
Now,
It's a singer's opera.
You've got
It's
to
a
have
singable opera. It does sing.
You got to have more than one offering. I'm sorry, you can't say that opera has produced comedy. No, you've produced one comedy since, like, Albert Herring. One comedy. Okay? You've got to... When we look back at all of these things that we're saying, you know, this is a guilty pleasure that I never want to hear again. This is, but you heard it in the first place.
You did.
This is a guilty pleasure that I would listen to any time. You know, the standard 200 operas in the repertoire, more or less, are part of probably 20,000 operas that were written between 1700
Here's one
and
for you.
1900.
How many operas did Haydn compose? Joseph Haydn.
Let me take a guess. I think I've heard this before. Was it like 20, 22?
15.
15, okay.
15. The last of which was written in 1791, right before he went to London for the first time.
Right.
And he composed it for that event. But King George III didn't want to hear it. Or there was something with the Prince of Wales, and they had so it was never performed. The creation becomes dominant. The London symphonies become dominant. And that's what... And Haydn becomes a rock star in England. It isn't premiered for 160 years. At which point Eric Kleiber conducts and Maria Callas is in 1951, 160 years after the fact.
But it just goes to show, and also
that's Joseph Haydn. That's not
no, that's not inconsequential.
Right.
You know, it's like Joe Blow who wrote one opera.
Right.
You know, no, it's you've got to have more on the plate if you want to find the hits. You've got to go through a lot of music. You can't just say, aha, we found the perfect idea.
Right.
This is going to be the comedy for this decade. Good luck with that. It doesn't happen like that.
Yeah. How many?
I mean, you could also say The Ghosts of Versailles by John Corigliano, except that has proved to be,
It's impossible to produce.
even less of a contribution than Great Scott was. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so, we've got you've got to get people writing.
Yeah.
You've got to get it writing, and opera houses are so stuck with having to produce the ABC, Aida, Bohème, Carmen,
Yeah.
that they're kind of like the London theaters, which are like Les Mis plays for 22 years at the Cambridge Theatre in Oxford Circus. I mean, or at the Palace in Oxford Circus. Every theater in London is so blocked up long term. Who's writing musicals nowadays, other than a jukebox musical?
Yeah. That's the.
ABBA, whatever.
Yeah.
The problem is there has to be a flow. There ought to be a law that says no theatrical piece can occupy a London theater longer than 5 months or something. After that, get out on tour.
Right. Yeah, but
got to bring new people in here.
But if the market will support it,
well, it's not. The thing is, it's the tourist market
that's true.
that is supporting it. It's so intimately tied to tourism that it has killed the production of musical theater.
Yeah.
It has killed it. It's dead.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the? I mean, I guess.
And the same thing kind of applies to operas. Good luck getting a new work on let's take a chance on this guy's comedy, see if people like it, because
it costs an arm and a leg. It's $1 million to produce an opera.
It costs an arm and a leg, and they've got to produce Aida, Bohème, or Carmen because that's the only way their audience is going to come, because those are the only 3 operas they know.
Yeah. Well, that's
because
fine.
they don't hear anything else.
Yeah, it's not their fault.
No, it's not their fault.
It is and it isn't. It's partly their fault.
Well, it's partly everybody's fault, but if you want to change the culture, we've got to get more opera being written so that people say, I've got to write. Their opera company goes, I've got to hear that aria. We've got to have that aria here.
Yeah, I was going to say, what did Verdi write? 3 operas before Falstaff? I mean, Nabucco?
Un giorno di regna, Oberto Conte di San Bonifacio, and...
There's a comedy, and he quit.
That was Un giorno di regna.
Okay, so then 2.
I mean, he wrote it. It just wasn't very good.
Yeah, and he quit afterward because it was so panned.
Right.
And then
he wrote Oberto, and Oberto...
Nabucco.
No, Oberto came after Un giorno di regna.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oberto Conte di San Bonifacio actually was Ferruccio Furlanetto's first opera in San Diego,
yeah.
And I was in it, and let me tell you, I've
voice.
rarely heard anything as beautiful as that guy's, the top of that guy's bass voice. But I can't remember what the third was. And then he writes Nabucco.
Nabucco. So, and Wagner, same thing. I think there's 3. There's the Fairies, there's Rienzi, or
Defane.
Rienzi, the Loves...
Das Liebesverbot.
Yeah. And then Dutchman.
And then Dutchman, yeah.
And then
well,
Tannhäuser.
I get the audacity of Wagner. The sheer audacity. He took the post in, was it Dresden? Mm-hmm. He'd never conducted an opera before. He gets there, he gets there, and in 2 weeks he's tasked, you got to lead Don Giovanni.
Yeah. Well, he is credited with putting Beethoven's Ninth on the map in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
His interpretation conducting Beethoven's Ninth. But listen to the Wagner Symphony in C major.
That's a great piece.
It's written by a 19-year-old.
Yes.
It is the most aggressive first symphony until that point. The only thing that exceeds it after would be Bruckner's first symphony.
You mean the Zero, the Symphony Zero, the Study Symphony?
No.
Or the number one? Right, okay.
And then Mahler's number 1. Brahms doesn't count. He was a very established composer by the time he wrote his first symphony.
Right.
He's in his 40s.
If you've never listened...
It's so... I was like, this is... Name me a Mendelssohn symphony that exceeds this.
Well, certainly not the Reformation.
No.
No.
No, the only one
No,
maybe... I don't think the Scottish does. Maybe the Italian symphony. Maybe.
That's a bit of a guilty pleasure for me, is the Italian Symphony. I do like that.
The first movement's great.
Yeah, it's the way it just sparkles. It's kind of like the beginning of the Fountains of Rome.
That's a guilty pleasure, the Roman trilogy.
Oh yes. Well, I don't know. I mean, that's meat. That's sheer meat.
Yeah.
That's just meat.
Pines of Rome is when the Roman army goes marching by. Were you there? You weren't there.
I was not there at that
Symphony
one.
did it because they put the horns
on the sides
at the bottom of the above the grand tier below the mezzanine, and it was.
Oh, I'm sure it was fantastic.
I was like, that's one of those. Was it serotonin? It's whatever you feel when you like. Oh, we just won.
Adrenaline.
We just fucking won. That's what I felt in that concert, man. It was spectacular, and I was like, man. I started looking for other performances I could like.
We won the concert.
Yeah, like where's someone else playing it? I'll go.
We're number one.
USA. Wait.
Italy.
Italy.
SD Sim. San Diego Symphony.
Oh, it's decent.
No, but I mean, yeah, we've.
Yeah, but the Wagner, that symphony in C is.
I'll tell you
For a
something.
19-year-old composition by a 19-year-old, it's significant.
Oh, absolutely, it is. It's an underperformed piece. People
It is.
should do it.
Yeah.
People should do it.
I don't
right?
need to hear the Brahms symphonies again, as much as I appreciate them.
No,
I love the second, but not the rest.
Wagner's Symphony in C is a wonderful piece and very much underheard.
Mm-hmm.
It's got terrific motivation, great form, great themes.
Great pathos in the second movement. It's
I'll tell you, just on the subject of first symphonies.
Mm-hmm.
Gee, we're not digressing, are we? But Wagner, you mentioned
Bruckner,
Mahler. Well, Mahler,
I don't love his first symphony.
No, but have you ever listened to the symphony by a young man named Hans Roth?
Oh yeah, Brahms made him commit suicide.
Did he really?
Well, he came to Brahms, and Brahms beat him up, as was Brahms.
That manuscript went unpublished for a very long time, and I think it was first recorded on Hyperion. Back in the 90s.
Yeah,
but I find it very.
It's a good piece.
I find it very.
I salute you.
Thank you. I find it very unlikely that Mahler had not seen that score.
Oh, right. They were certainly close. They were
if you listen to the way that young man uses the trumpets in certain places, some of his unfolding chord modulations and things, key modulations, it's very Mahlerian. I'm not saying that Mahler stole that. I'm saying Mahler saw that score and was influenced by it. and
Perhaps, yeah.
I think he saw new possibilities as a result of that score.
Right.
And it's not a detraction from Mahler; it's a tribute to Hans Roth.
Yeah.
Because Mahler, lived a full life and was able to really act on that. But we're all composers are influenced by one thing or another.
course.
But I detected a very strong influence in that on Mahler, and in a good way, in a
Right.
really good way. That's a fascinating piece.
It is.
I mean, if that kid had lived,
Who knows?
we might have had either two Mahlers, or we might have had a Roth, and then Mahler might have been something else.
Yeah.
So, my mind is a bit blank
Yeah.
on operas this evening. I'm not really in the opera mode.
Yeah. Also, Sprague, Zarathustra, Ein Heldenleben.
No, I don't need that.
I would listen to Death and Transfiguration again, though. It's a guilty pleasure, though.
Talking about guilty pleasures. What about the Richard Strauss Domestic Symphony?
I've never really listened to that.
Well, apparently there's a scene in it where he and his wife are having a bit of
A bit of sharing.
intimate sharing. Yes, there's rumble pumping going on. That's just it's rated G.
Well, speaking of operas, the Intermezzo by Strauss is some of his best music, but it's really poor taste because he depicts his wife as shrill and alarmist, and it's really quite critical and sexist the way that character is portrayed. But the music is.
I'm trying to remember. There was somebody, another musician or conductor. I'm trying to remember who it was. Someone said something either laudatory or critical about Richard Strauss, and he said, "Trust me, I played cards with him every night for 20 years. The man was a pig." I'm not kidding. That's what he said.
I don't doubt it. He had that little, molester mustache
Chester.
when he was young. That little, the thin, that guy.
Well, he was preternaturally facile as a composer, and
I love Rosenkavalier, though. I'm gonna go
so
see
do
it.
I.
I'm gonna go see it at the Met.
I remember hearing John Tomlinson at the ENO as Hans Sachs in the early 1990s.
Hans Sachs.
And Baron Ochs. Ochs, not Sachs. Ochs.
Right.
And it was just wonderful. They did it in an English country house setting, in Edwardian costume, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
Just fantastic.
I will say, the Italian singer probably will not be sung by a person of Luciano Pavarotti's status, which is what used to happen at the Met. He would just come sing that first act, which you're just like, what? Pavarotti singing the Italian singer and Rosenkavalier, come on. That's good stuff.
It's
Of
funny.
course, he lived right there in the Essex house, and so
did he? It's funny to see the video of Pavarotti in Moscow in 1964, 65.
Yeah. We will watch the documentary.
We'll get to that.
It wasn't in theaters by the time we got around to it.
Yeah, we had a very short run.
It was at least a month in the theaters,
But he's so trim and so and just so.
He almost died as a child, though.
He almost died in a plane crash once too.
But he stepped on a nail or something playing soccer or football.
Oh, really?
Yeah, barefoot, and was close.
Did he get tetanus or something?
That's why his thing with the nails. So there is a German Pavarotti documentary on Amazon.
Okay.
Which I watched. It's probably better than the Ron Howard. It was probably more fair and not quite as laudatory. More balanced. But he would always... The crew would put nails out, bent nails, for him to find, and he would always pick up a nail and have it in his pocket. It was this talisman type thing. He had this collection of nails that he collected over his career.
Really?
And it goes back to that when he was 11 or 12.
Huh. No, I had not heard that.
Yeah.
I had not heard that.
Yeah.
Well, he was in a plane crash once as well, and in I think coming into Modena or something, and he was in a DC-3 or something, and the plane crashed and the front end of the plane broke off and like his seat was exposed.
Wow.
He was just hanging out right there or something. He almost bought it then too. That was in the early 60s.
Okay. Yeah, something about the Italians and crashes, because Puccini had that car crash. He almost died in the car, and Puccini did.
Did he?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a bit. It's fascinating. That's for another day, though. The character of Liu, based on reality.
Oh yes. Well, that's a bit unfortunate, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. We're
We'll
so
get to
full of
I mean,
rosé.
when you start talking about the moral and ethical character of
Anyone.
of anyone really,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to
What's got two thumbs and a spotty moral character?
the what
This guy.
this guy. No one's perfect, obviously, and we're not necessarily here to. I mean,
We're not here to be revisionist and to. Okay, we're here to judge people. We're not here to condemn anyone. There's a big
Right.
difference.
Well,
You
we're here
should
to-
be judging. I think
We're here
as
to-
a human, you need to be judging at all times. You need not condemn, though.
that's true. I mean, that's not the brief here. The brief is to appreciate their works. Mm-hmm. And, Puccini was, let's put it this way, as flawed as anyone. Yes, but the character of Liu has definite
I really do
criticizable
believe
aspects.
it's complete conjecture, but I really do believe it's because of that he did not finish the opera. He couldn't. I don't think he could do it.
Very possible. Very possible.
Maybe subconsciously he got there.
Well, let's save it.
Let's save it. We'll
save it. We're
yeah.
saving it like the end of this glass of
Yes.
lovely rosé.
Of lukewarm rosé now. It's quite warm.
It's got a good nose on it.
This was delightful.
nice.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we should do 10 tenors and 10 shots, though.
We've talked about that. So
Maybe we should start with
10 tenors, 10 best tenors, 10 best whiskeys.
we
So
should
we
probably do
discuss
5.
a tenor, and then in the space of an hour.
I'm a lightweight. I don't drink, really.
Well, you're not going to start breaking up the furniture or anything, are you?
No, but I'm already getting a little. I'm sure it's going to come across here. I'm getting a little. I'm in my
You're not
cups.
slurring
Not
your-
in my cups.
You're not slurring your words.
I'm
or
not
anything.
slurring. But I'm feeling. I'm emboldened.
Well, good. It's what you're supposed to be.
It's
This
what
is,
you're
this is
supposed
a
to be.
cultural
Yes.
review program. So
Yes.
no,
Yeah, we'll
I'm
save
trying to
this.
think of another. I mean,
One more guilty pleasure.
one more guilty pleasure
A
of
big
an,
one.
of an opera that I could listen to
Oh, an
any
opera.
time. Probably anything by Gilbert and Sullivan. Seriously, I'm a huge.
Hmm. You're a big fan.
I'm a huge
I could-
Savoyard.
I could not.
I believe
care less,
in the
really.
works of Gilbert and Sullivan as a positive influence on society and in pretty much every way, and that it delivers along with an extraordinary amount of delight, which I think is the essential characteristic of the music of Arthur Sullivan. It is consistently delightful. The ability to delight an audience.
He wrote quite a good symphony, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Listen to it.
yeah. He wrote some some good concert overtures, some good theatrical incidental music, some good. He wrote a nice cello concerto too. A cello concerto which was miraculously reconstituted from the memory of Charles Mackerras after the parts had been bombed during the war.
Wow.
The music library, I believe it was of Chapels, got bombed and all the parts were lost. A warehouse that they kept them in, and so Mackerras had played the concerto, and so he knew the solo part, and he knew he had an idea of the a good enough idea of the orchestral parts to be able to put it back together.
Wow.
So he wrote it out, and then it was reorchestrated.
That's incredible.
It's a great save.
Yeah.
It's a great save.